Greetings to all and welcome to our meditative time together in what we're calling poetry and prayer. During this time, we take a moment to slow down, take a deep breath, and listen to the wisdom of a variety of spiritual fathers and mothers, masters and mystics from the East and from the West, from ancient times up to the present, as they speak to us in their poems that we use as prayers. I'm Kent Fish of First Christian Church in San Angelo. Thank you for joining us in this virtual group of contemplation during these trying, uncertain times. Author Father Thomas Keating reminds us that for Christians there is a fifth gospel: to become the Word of God and to manifest God, empty of self and full of God. So find your quiet place, pour a drink, light a candle, whatever you find meaningful for you. And we will begin with music to prepare us for our time together. This song may express what a lot of people of faith may be feeling at this difficult time. It's by a couple called All Sons and Daughters, a duo. The song is one we have played in worship and sung in worship. It's called Reason to Sing.
When the pieces seem too shattered to gather off the floor, and all that seems to matter is that I don't feel you anymore. No, I don't feel you anymore. I need a reason to sing. I need a reason to sing. I need to know that you're still holding the whole world in your hands. I need a reason to sing. When I'm overcome by fear and I hate everything I know, if this waiting lasts forever, I'm afraid I might let go. I'm afraid I might let go. Oh, I need a reason to see. I need a reason to see. I need to know that you're still holding the whole world in your hands. And I need a reason to see. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to know that you're still holding the whole world in your hands. And that is a reason to see.
As we begin our readings together, remember our goal is two things: to listen as we pay attention to what we are reading and hearing, and to have the intention of experiencing God with that through prayer. We are today using the readings again from Daniel Ladinsky's book. It's called Love Poems from God. Our two famous spiritual masters and mystics today are both from the West. One's from Germany and the other from Italy. And they're both from the Middle Ages. They lived during the same time. Sometimes that's called the Dark Ages. In this case, it was the 13th century or the 1200s. The first is St. Thomas Aquinas, who lived from 1225 to 1274. He's often regarded as the greatest Catholic theologian. He was born in Italy into a noble, wealthy family, and he was sent off to a Benedictine abbey at the age of 5 for his education. And there he did not disappoint. He stunned his teachers with his profound questions and insights about God. And he, like many of these mystics, developed a great love for meditation and solitude. And at the age of 17, he joined the Dominican order and vowed himself to a life of poverty. Interestingly, his mother did not approve of this, so she had his brothers kidnap him, bring him back to the family castle, and they kept him there for 2 years, imprisoned. During this time, he spent simply memorizing scripture. So the family gave up, and they allowed him to leave, and he rejoined the Dominican order. After further study, he became a master at the University of Paris. He read the writings of Aristotle, and he developed this understanding that everything in creation is a revelation of God's infinite being. His prolific writings including nearly 100 memorable, remarkable works. So these are the poems as prayers of St. Thomas Aquinas. The first couple are very short. First was called Close to God. One may never have heard the sacred word Christ, but be closer to God than a priest or a nun. One called From My Breath. From my breath I extract God, and my eye is a shop where I offer God to the world. I extract God from each breath. This one's called Every Foot a Shrine. Every creature has a religion. Every foot is a shrine where a secret candle burns. Every cell in us worships God. Every arrow in the bow of desire has rushed out in hope of nearing God. one called We Are Fields Before Each Other. How is it they live for eons in such harmony, the billions of stars, when most men can barely go a minute without declaring war in their mind against someone they know? There are wars where no one marches with a flag, though that does not keep casualties from mounting. Our hearts irrigate this earth. We are fields before each other. How can we live in harmony? First, we need to know we are all madly in love with the same God. Maybe then we could go a minute without declaring war in our minds against someone else. This was called the divine intimacy. The experience of something out of nothing, is that not how one might describe magic? A hat held upside down may appear empty, though at God's command, all life that any planet has ever known could dance around the hat's rim, holding hands. The root that needs no ground is God, and from that root all has come. Creation is God's litter, and all are nursed. Some grow more plump than others, indeed. Eternally amazed is the soul before God, watching God expand. Witnessing God reveal God's self to God's self. That divine intimacy I know. Creation is God's litter, and all are nursed. This next one is called Capax Universi. Means capable of the universe. Capax Universi, capable of the universe, are your arms when they move with love. And I know it's true that your feet are never more alive than when they are in defense of a good cause. I want to fund your efforts. Stay near beauty, for she will always strengthen you. She will bring your mouth close to hers and breathe. Inspire you the way light does the fields. The earth inhales God. Why should we not do the same? This sacred flame we tend inside needs the chants of every tongue, the communion with all. As capable as God are we. The earth inhales God. Why should we not do the same? This next one's called Could You Embrace That? I said to God, let me love you. And God replied, which part? All of you. All of you, I said. Dear, God spoke, you are as a mouse wanting to impregnate a tiger who is not even in heat. It is a feat way beyond your courage and strength. You would run from me if I removed my mask. I said to God again, Beloved, I need to love you, every aspect, every pore. And this time God said, there is a hideous blemish on my body, though it is such an infinitesimal part of my being. Could you kiss that if it were revealed? I will try, Lord. I will try. And then God said, that blemish is all the hatred and cruelty in this world. The hideous blemish on the body of God, all the hatred and the cruelty in this world. Could we kiss that? This one's called Otherwise the Darkness. I have a cause. We need those, don't we? Otherwise the darkness and the cold gets in, and everything starts to ache. My soul has a purpose. It is to love. If I do not fulfill my heart's vocation, I suffer. Each soul has a purpose, and that purpose is to love. This one's called You Cannot Be What God Is Not. All are having a relationship with God. A pear taken from a limb and set in a bowl, surely it is talking to its Lord, and happy that it's being honored for its life, and somehow knowing that soon it will be returning to God. We use words like returning. Think about that. Inherent in that word is separation. And separation from God is never really possible. What can you be that God is not? You cannot be what I am not, my Lord once said to me. Separation from God is never really possible. And this one called God's Nature, from Thomas Aquinas. Sometimes we think what we are saying about God is true when in fact it is not. It would seem of value to differentiate between what is God's nature and what is false about love. I have come to learn that the truth never harms or frightens. I've come to learn that God's compassion and light can never be limited. Thus, any God who could condemn is not a God at all, but some disturbing image in the mind of a child we best ignore until we can cure the dark. Any God who would condemn is not a God at all. Now we move on to our second spiritual master. He lived during this same time period. His name is Meister Eckhart. He lived from 1260 to 1328, so he was living during the same time as Thomas Aquinas, but he was 45 years younger. Meister Eckhart is one of history's great mystics. He's most well known for his sermons of stunning clarity, and the Catholic Church apparently feared his brilliance, and he was on the verge of being brought before the Inquisition right before he died. He was born in Germany, and like Aquinas, he joined the Dominicans as a young man. He is said to have superbly blended this life of contemplation with one of action, a career of great external involvement. He studied, he became vicar general for Bohemia. He was made professor at Cologne at the university where he spent the rest of his life. His deep radical insights, as well as his popularity with his countrymen, led to accusations of heresy. He said things like this: "Is this not a holy trinity, the sky, the earth, our bodies? And is it not an act of worship to hold a child and till the soil and lift a cup? And communion, first seek that from your lover's soul before anything offered from a priest." Well, he died before they could censor him, but after his death, the Catholic Church condemned and suppressed his work. And it wasn't until 1980 that the Dominican order has begun publishing his works and his many sermons, and revealed that Meister Eckhart was an exemplary Christian mystic and priest. Maybe one of his most famous sayings is one I have used when talking about gratitude. He said, "If the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that is enough." And the beautiful idea comes from Meister Eckhart: let God be God in you. Here's some poems from Meister Eckhart. The first one is called "When I Was the Forest." When I was the stream, when I was the forest, when I was still the field, when I was every hoof, foot, fin, and wing, when I was the sky itself, no one ever asked me, did I have a purpose? No one ever wondered, was there anything I might need? For there was nothing I could not love. It was when I left all we once were that the agony began. The fear and the questions came, and I wept, and tears I had never known before. So I returned to the river, I returned to the mountains, I asked for their hand in marriage again. I begged to wed every object and creature. And when they accepted, God was ever present in my arms. And God did not say, "Where have you been?" For then I knew my soul, every soul, has always held God. Again, we hear over and over from these mystics the idea of God in everyone and everything. This one's called "The Wind Will Show Its Kindness." A man born blind can easily deny the magnificence of a vast landscape. He can easily deny all the wonders that he cannot touch, smell, taste, or hear. But one day, the wind will show its kindness and remove the tiny patches that cover your eyes, and you will see God more clearly than you have ever seen yourself. That metaphor that we go through life blindfolded. Richard Rohr calls it sleepwalking. We just don't see. We just don't know what we're missing. And then we will remove the tiny patches that cover your eyes, and you will see God more clearly. This one's called "Why So Many Souls?" This idea of a creative God. When were you last really happy? Let that experience ferment. Bring it to mind once in a while. Surely in the genesis of that past moment, when you danced, you would not have wanted a constable to have knocked on your door or have said, "You've just entered a restricted ground." Why are there so many stars and souls with no end in sight for them? Because nothing can interrupt God when God is having fun creating. A creative, happy God. This next one comes from a poem called Jerusalem. In it he says, "The awakened heart is like a luminous sphere, just giving without thought to any who may come close or gaze at it. The soul becomes blessedly lost to all but its own holy being. When we cannot be who we are, our divine senses become mute and sick from the insanity of judging what God made immaculate." When we cannot become who we are, our divine senses become mute. That awakened heart within us that is like a luminous sphere. This one's about everything in existence being in love, called Always Kissing. They are always kissing. They can't control themselves. It is not possible that any creature can have greater instincts and perceptions than the mature human mind. God ripened me, so I see it as true. All objects in existence are wildly in love. Wouldn't that be nice if we really believed it? All objects in existence mildly in love. They are always kissing. They cannot control themselves. This one's called Love Does That. All day long, a little burro labors, sometimes with heavy loads on her back, and sometimes just with worries about things that bother only burros. And worries, as we know, can be more exhausting than physical labor. Once in a while, a kind monk comes to her stable and brings a pear. But more than that, he looks into the burro's eyes and touches her ears, and for a few seconds, the burro is free and even seems to laugh. Because love does that. Love frees. Worries, as we know, can be more exhausting than physical labor. But love frees. And this one's called How Then Can We Argue? Having lunch in a field one day, I troubled an ant with a question. I asked of him humbly, "Have you ever been to Paris?" And he replied, "No, but I wouldn't mind going." And then he asked me if I'd ever been to a famous ant city. And I regretted that I hadn't, and was quick to add, I wouldn't mind, too. Well, this led to a conclusion. There is life that we do not know of. How aware are we of all consciousness in this universe? What percent of space in this earth is this earth in the infinite realm? What percent of time is 1 second in eternity? Less than that is our knowledge of God. How then can we ever argue about God? Questioning our knowledge and understanding of the ineffable mystery of God that we don't mind arguing about, even though we know so little. This is a nice one. Listen carefully. It's called Expands His Being. All beings are words of God. God's music, God's art. Sacred books we are for the infinite camps in our souls. Every act reveals God and expands God's being. I know that may be hard to comprehend. All creatures are doing their best to help God in the birth of God's self. Enough talk for the night. God is laboring in me. I need to be silent for a while. Worlds are forming in my heart. Can we help God give birth to God? All creatures are doing their best to help God in the birth of God's self. This one's called Everything. Everything I see, hear, touch, feel, taste, speak, think, imagine is completing a perfect circle God has drawn. And then one that many of us might relate to. The little g gods, idols in our life. It's called an insidious idol. Commerce is supported by keeping the individual at odds with himself and others, by making us want more than we need, and offering credit to buy what refined senses do not want. The masses become shackled. I see how their eyes weep and are desperate. Of course they feel desperate for something, for some remedy that a poor soul then feels needs to be bought. I find nothing more offensive than a God, that's with a little g, who could condemn human instincts in us that time in all its wonder has made perfect. I find nothing more destructive to the well-being of life than to support a God that makes you feel unworthy and in debt to it. I imagine erecting churches to such a strange God will assure endless wars that commerce loves. A God that could frighten is not a God, but an insidious idol in the weapon in the hands of the insane. A God who talks of sin is worshipped by the infirm. I was once spiritually ill. We all pass through that. But one day the intelligence in my soul cured me. A God that could frighten is not a God, but a weapon in the hands of the insane. That's nice. This is a short one called An Image That Makes Them Sad. How long will grown men and women in this world keep drawing in their coloring books an image of God that makes them sad? Here's one that's short enough you could memorize this one, from Meister Eckhart, called It's a Lie. It is a lie, any talk of God that does not comfort you. And then one called To See as God Sees. It is your destiny to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels. How is this possible? How? Because divine love cannot defy its very self. Divine love will be eternally true to its own being, and its being is giving all it can at the perfect moment. And the greatest gift God can give is God's own experience. Every object, every creature, every man, woman, and child has a soul, and it is the destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. Wow. The greatest gift God can give is God's own experience. And I'm going to do one very last one of Meister Eckhart that comes from a book by Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox has written a lot about both Thomas Aquinas and Meister Eckhart. They are favorites of him, and he has this book called Meditations with Meister Eckhart. I'm going to do this last one of Meister Eckhart. The more you seek God, the less you will find God. If you do not seek God, you will find God. God does not ask anything else of you except that you let yourself go and let God be God in you. How's that? You can memorize that one. Let God be God in you. From Meister Eckhart. I want to finish with a couple of prayers from a contemporary poet and mystic to remind us that poems of our present day can be sources of mystery and prayer. I want to read from a spiritual writer and a poet and a philosopher of the present day called Mark Nebo. I'm just going to read two of those. I got this off his website. Mark Nepo, N-E-P-O, a present day mystic and writer. His first one is called The Way Under the Way. For all that has been written, for all that has been read, we are led to this instance where one of us will speak and one of us will listen, as if no one has ever placed an oar into that water. It doesn't matter how we come to this. We may jump to it or be worn to it because of great pain, or a sudden raw feeling that this is all very real. It may happen in a parking lot when we break the eggs in the rain, or watching each other in our grief. But here we will come with very little left in the way. When we meet like this, I may not have the words, so let me say it now. Nothing compares to the sensation of being alive in the company of another. It is God breathing on the embers of our soul. Stripped of causes and plans and things to strive for, I have discovered everything I could need or ask for is right here in flawed abundance. We cannot eliminate hunger, but we can feed each other. We cannot eliminate loneliness, but we can hold each other. We cannot eliminate pain, but we can live a life of compassion. Ultimately, we are small living things awakened in the stream, no gods who carve out rivers. Like human fish, we are asked to experience meaning in this life that moves through the gill of our heart. There is nothing to do and know where to go. Accepting this, we can do everything and go anywhere. And this last one from Mark Nepo, and we may do some more of his later in a future week. This one's called Breaking Surface. Let no one keep you from your journey. No rabbi or priest, no mother who wants you to dig for treasures she misplaced. No father who won't let one life be enough. No lover who measures their worth by what you might give up. No voice that tells you in the night it can't be done. Let nothing dissuade you from seeing what you see, or feeling the winds that make you want to dance alone, or go where no one has yet to go. You are the only explorer, your heart the unreadable compass, your shore the soul of a promise too great to be ignored. That's from Mark Nepo. He actually has a new book that's coming out this week. It's called The Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. I got those poems from his website. There are more there. Once again, today we end with music. This one's from one of my favorite choral composers that many of you may know, John Rutter. We end with his Gaelic blessing. Thanks for joining us. Hope this has been a meaningful time. See you next week. And remember, let God be God in you.